All right, thanks for coming. All right, glad you're here. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to show up, but you're here. So let me take a short survey here. Who's more interested in sovereignty than gardening? And who's more interested in gardening than sovereignty? And who's interested in both? Both?
Sovereignty more for me.
All right, so I'll do probably about half and half. I wanted to just make you aware, first of all, that this little flag is not really a part of the U.S. government or anything, but it was used back in the time right after the Revolutionary War and even after the Civil War. And it's been designated as the civilian flag of the United States of America. The flag we see as Old Glory now, that's a military flag, and most people don't know it. So the thing is that there's a group of people now that are starting out. They're not called sovereign citizens. So don't even get that. That's a whole made-up term by the government to ensnare people in traps. So don't even think of yourself ever as a sovereign citizen. But this is something that a number of people recognize because we are peaceful Americans living on the land. That's our birthright. And we're American nationals. In fact, if you live in California, you're American California national. If you live in Arizona, you're American Arizona national. So we still recognize the states because we're living under the auspices of what happened to free us from British rule with the Declaration of Independence. And there's a number of things that have been codified going back to England before the colonies even started with the Magna Carta, for instance, that helps people to really gain a foothold of their rights that they have as living, breathing men and women on the land. So what has happened over the years is that there's been developed English common law and then American common law. That never went away. What happened was right after around the time of the Civil War, our government was basically abolished and a corporation was put in its place called the United States of America. They didn't put incorporated on it, but it is a corporation. You can actually look it up. So the reason they did this is they wanted to, the British wanted to kind of sneak in and get a little bit more of the bounty of this great land. And they used lawyers, they used tricks. The lawyers call them words of art. So, for instance, you are not a person. If you thought you were a person, that's a legal construct name that means that, well, corporation should be a person. You know, you are a living man or a living woman. Even the word human being, if you look at it in Black's Law Dictionary, it says human being is actually a monster. It's a creation. So you've got to watch these funny words of art and be careful because that could get you in trouble if you get into a situation with the law. So I'm leading off with sovereignty, and then I'm going to get into a little further about organic gardening and how I personally integrate the two. The organic gardening keeps me grounded, the sovereignty keeps me in my intellectual sphere in order so I can be free to do what I want. And that's what this whole festival is about. You know? And we all have that right. It comes from God. It doesn't our creator or the universe or whatever you want to call it. It's not something that was bestowed upon us by any government. In fact, governments were created by we the people. And this is true everywhere on every continent. You know, with every government that is associated. So technically, you have the creator, then you have the living man or woman, and then you have the government. So the government is underneath us. But nowadays, of course, the government wants to imply all the time that they're over us, and they can dictate whatever they want us to do, and that we must follow. That's slavery, as you know. That's not the way it was intended to be. So what I just give you a little background. I'm a filmmaker. Been making documentary films since the 70s or so. And I primarily wanted to do things that would help the world. And I didn't want to do things that were commercially oriented too much or anything that fed into the war machine. So I made a few documentaries on alternative energies, free energies, UFOs, angels, metaphysics, on alternative health. And I realized too at that time that people who I was interviewing were giving me bits and pieces of the knowledge to really see what was going on underneath the surface. Because a lot of people, they just accept what they were taught at school, and they accept that, oh, well, they're the authority figures, they must know, and there's the book, it's written in words, but there's so much that's deliberately left out to keep us in the dark. So I started going down that rabbit hole. And then with the 2003 illegal invasion of Iraq, I decided I'm not going to spend my tax money to kill people overseas. And I wrote to my Congress people, I wrote to the IRS, and I said, I'm not evading taxes, I'm refusing to pay them. I'm a war tax resistant. So I started on that path. Then I started getting information about patriot movements, about sovereignty movement, tax freedom movements, and all these educational resources came to me. Some of them were online, some of them I just kind of found by word of mouth and found the right people to give me to fill in the blanks of what I needed to know. So they finally caught up with me in about 2009. And they audited me. I was, at that time, I had learned enough not to stop even filling out tax forms. So I was filling out IRS forms, 1040s and Schedule Cs and so forth. I wasn't paying any taxes because I would use business expenses and I would balance it out and do what the corporations do, don't pay taxes, right? It's use a lot of manipulation. So they wanted to audit me, and I pushed them off for a while, but they also came back to me, and I finally said, this is ridiculous. They were trying to impose all these conflated types of expenses that, saying that this trip I took wasn't a business expense. They do that kind of thing. So they said I owed $40,000. And I put in a request for a review and all that stuff. So I went through that whole process. Finally went to the judge and at tax court. I took the IRS to court. And you could do that. So what happened was I got a lot of the right people telling me the right information of how I needed to proceed, what papers I needed to submit to the court, which I did. And then how to go in, and the main thing was not to cross the bar. They have a little gate, and you swing the gate open, and you go in there, and you talk on the microphone, and once you do that, you are in their jurisdiction. That is their jurisdiction, which is called admiralty or maritime law. And that's a law of the sea, not of the land. So the common law is of the land, and we are on the land. We are people on the land. But they use trickery, they use all kinds of conflated nonsense to imply that we're property and all this stuff. And we have this trust, and you probably heard all these stories. And some of them are true, some of them are a little inflated and hard to prove. But, like from the moment you get a birth certificate, you're registered with the Vatican. I now know that's true. It's actually true. So we're not... the vast majority of people are not aware of these types of things. But I did my homework, I did my education, I researched it for many months. And I'd always been, pretty much like you guys, totally skeptical of the good wishes of our government. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. And, I grew up during the Watergate era, ended the Vietnam War and all this stuff. So I felt patriotic growing up as a kid, and I might have even gone to the Naval Academy, but my eyesight was too bad in my eyes, so I couldn't go into the Naval Academy. So I started making movies, and I'm glad I did. I have no regrets. And I was kind of saved from getting drafted to go into Vietnam, but that's a whole different story. So, because I don't have a lot of time here, I want to mention several things. First of all, there was a point where all this knowledge was coming at me, and I just stood with this imperative that I didn't want to pay the government to kill people on my behalf. I wanted to stay in integrity. And then the forces that came together to give me the right information, there was a sudden aha moment when I finally realized, sovereignty is a state of mind. It's not a form you have to fill out and do. Please, can I be sovereign government? No. Sovereignty mainly implies that we are kings and queens. We are only under the Creator, our God. We are not under any form of government whatsoever. And because we're not under a form of government, unless we choose to be, we can opt out. Choose not to. So then I realized, I could also play in both fields if I needed to, because if you're sovereign, you get to choose. And that was interesting. So I'm not what you might call 100% sovereign. I don't have a car that doesn't have any license plates, unregistered, and I do still have a driver's license, things like that. Primarily because I don't want to deal with all the hassles, and that's my choice. But at the same time, I'm investigating that opportunity. I haven't, closed off my education, and I'm looking at how other people are doing that. And I've come across the American State National movement that is growing in leaps and bounds, and they have assemblies in every state. So they use this flag a lot. My main interest at this point is to help younger people realize this, and get them starting to inquire and educate themselves, and really understand that. If they are going to go down this path, there are tripwires we need to be aware of. There are, like with the words of art that lawyers and judges use, they have to be careful with that. So one of them is the sovereign citizen term. You could say you're sovereign, but if you're a citizen, that makes you a member of some sort of government, some sort of state. So you got to be careful about that. And there are other things like that. The judge finally said, Mr. Toussaint, you seem very confident of yourself. I'm going to wait till all these other people go there, and I'm going to readdress you. Because you don't want for me to influence these other people that are just sitting there. And they actually flew this judge in from Washington, D.C. to tax court. They have special judges, and they know what's going on. They know that they set up these trusts. And like your straw man, in all caps, that's not you. That is a particular person or entity that they've created on your behalf using your given name. And if you notice anything you get from the IRS or any government or even utilities and banks, it has your name in all caps. So, I want to move on a little bit to gardening, but does anybody have any questions first about this? Does any of this sound like contradictory to what you've already heard or known?
Spot right on.
Oh, good. Okay.
Pretty much know all that.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay.
Same as when you go to court, the reason there's a flag right there with a golden ribbon around it.
That, that golden fringe
Yeah,
is
the golden
really,
fringe, yeah.
that's what, in
Admiralty.
their world,
The Admiralty
indicates
law, yeah.
Admiralty law.
The gold fringe around it.
Yeah. and even know that even if the gold fringe isn't around it, that's still the wartime flag of the United States of America. So essentially, we've been at war since our creation by using that flag. But this flag was actually flown over post offices and Coast Guard cutters that were doing tax revenue collection and all that stuff. Yeah.
Where can we get copies of that flag in bigger form?
It's called the peacetime flag of the of America, or of the United States of America. If you Google that, or you should be able to find it. I don't know. You could also look at Anna von Wright's site.
Ah, yes.
She has been talking about all these things. She's a wealth of knowledge. Oh my gosh. And then there's something called Toussaint.org. I think it's the American State Assembly.org, Toussaint.org. They can direct you to it. Yeah, it's still not well known. Most people think, yeah, oh glory, yeah.
A lot of flag worship.
That's still the government, you know. So the thing about, I've been an organic gardener now for over 25 years. And my mom grew up on a farm, so she put me to work when I was young. I was the oldest of 5 children. And I simply learned a lot through working with the plants. Looking, it was all mainly edible vegetables and things like that. So when I came to California, I was in an apartment for a long time, couldn't do it, but then I finally got a house with a backyard and started doing that. And I still do it now, although I have a small space. And personally, I would like to move and get into a bigger space because there's all kinds of wonkiness, as you probably know, going on with California state government. So I think Los Angeles is going to be very unsustainable very quickly. So I want to take what knowledge I have about growing food, about saving seeds, very important, and all these other things, regenerative agriculture, to communities to get people excited about that. And because when I first did it and I started eating the food I was growing, I got great strawberries. Most store-bought strawberries are heavily laden with pesticides, as you probably know. I don't have to do any pesticides. The bugs get a small percentage of it. And I just pick the rest and got organic strawberries, and I have some when I get home. So I wanted to do that, and the feeling is like, for me as a man, it's almost like giving birth would be for a woman, right? It's like, wow, I'm producing life here. It's exciting. And it's empowering too. It makes you feel sovereign in a great respect. And people are starting to talk about food sovereignty, especially the First Nations people. So I've worked with local groups. There's a Seed Savers of Los Angeles that has been saving seeds. And there's these seed banks starting to form in a lot of communities. Is anybody here really heavily, intensively already doing organic gardening?
Right here.
Yeah, I am. West.
Okay, so three of you.
Vertical.
Okay.
Organic.
Vertical?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I do a little vertical stuff, not too much. But so there's so much to know, and it's very intimidating a lot for new people, right? Maybe had a failure or something like that, and they got dejected because they killed all their plants. You got to get over that, because you're going to kill some plants accidentally when you first start, and even years later, it's going to just happen. You're not even going to know why. So get over that. You're going to lose them. If you lose them all, maybe that's not the plant that wants to be part of your diet or your garden. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is find out what you love to eat. I don't do bok choy or arugula because I'm not really fond of those things. But I do lettuce, I do green beans, I do all sorts of herbs. Herbs are great because you can do them in pots, for instance, so you can move them around and experiment. A lot of it is experimentation when you first start. Because if you go online, you'll see that a lot of different regions around the country are in these bioregion areas where they have specific dates where things can be grown. Lettuce now you can't grow; it's too hot, for instance. There might be exceptions if you use a greenhouse, but we're not talking on that level yet, right? But there's fun things that you could do. Plants, like everybody loves tomatoes, basically. So start with a few tomatoes. Start with basil, because basil is a companion plant, for instance. Loves to be around tomatoes, and tomatoes thrive with it. And of course, they taste good together in sauces if you want to make a salsa or pizza or something. And if you have kids and want to get them involved, that is so precious, because once they've learned that food doesn't just come from a grocery store, it comes from the ground, and that they can actually grow it and eat it right out of the ground, that's like a big shift. Yeah.
Have you ever noticed when you did your planning the different soils demographically that actually what you can and can't grow?
Yeah. I've been having a hard time with spinach. And my soil,
I just said the same thing. It's not growing in my vertical farms.
Hard for me. It requires a mix of sandy soil mostly, and then clay. I've got a lot of clay where I am, so I have to use other things. Or I have to amend the soil. And you could do that by going to a nursery and talking to the people there. A lot of them are very knowledgeable. I had pests. And that's one of the issues almost every organic gardener is going to deal with, because we don't use pesticides. So how do we deal with pests? But there's things like diatomaceous. There's neem oil. There's even whole milk you can spray on the plants to reduce things like mildew and mites and other bugs. You could even bring in. I did one year. I brought in ladybugs, and they kind of disappeared. And I go, oh, well, I'll have to get some more. But then they came back, and I went, aha! Their young ones are remembering where the good plants are.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that does happen too. And the other pests, of course, are going to be squirrels. They love a lot of what we love. And then birds sometimes, especially. If you plant the seeds, sometimes they're watching them. They'll go right in and find them.
How do you keep the birds out of your strawberries?
Net? Just a net?
I had them for a while. I put a netting over it. But then this year I haven't had to do that. I think they found enough food in the other trees that they don't really require eating the strawberries. I got a possum every now and then, and I think he's getting some of the strawberries. And one year I had a mouse, and the mouse ate 25 of my tomatoes. Took just one bite out.
Oh, that's the worst.
And it was so devastating. But, did it stop me? No. It's just like, is the federal government going to stop me? No. Is the state government? No. It's like you have to see what's important in your life, And in this case, and when you start really doing things out of integrity, providence occurs. I think people come in, the right people, the right ideas, the right books, the right websites, and get you to the next place you need to be, the next step. I didn't want to fight the government. I just wanted them to leave me alone. Like most of us here, I believe.
Yep.
We're peaceful people. We just want to live our lives without too much intrusion and all these regulations. So I decided, I'll stop at stop signs and red lights. I'm not going to be, that foolish. Some people may push the envelope and dare the authorities, and that's okay. They want to do that. That's fine. But I just want to make movies, enjoy life, come out to places like this, camp, have fun, and be with like-minded souls. work on my spiritual growth, and that's it. So I need to do that. And once you find that place in you that requires that compels you to do that, believe me, nothing on earth is going to stop you. Yeah.
Have you ever looked at the combinations of the different herbs that attract or keep away from insects? Like a good example, mojito mint or just mint, is really good for mosquitoes, even though it's a weed. But then I also have bee balm and lemon balm that attracts the bees, which pollinates the roses.
Right.
And when you think of the birds, and I don't have squirrels in my area, but when I look at the different type of insects and what attracts what, from spiders to whatever, it still keeps a good healthy growth, like the basil or the rosemaries.
Yeah, it's a learning curve. I'm always learning new things. Certain things I know. I've tried putting cayenne pepper on plants that I think the possum's going to go after, and like you say, planting things like mint. A lot of animals, they don't like things that are too strong, So people recommend garlic sometimes in places. Once again, it depends on what your goal is. If you want to get 100% off the grid and feed your family with all food that you grow there, and you have chickens, you have goats or something like that too, go for it. But boy, you are going to have to study what other successful farmers have done. I went to the Exit and Build Land Summit in Bastrop, Texas, so May 8th or something. And we went out, they had farm tours, and we went out to some of these people's farms that were doing this stuff. And man, they told us of their good experiences and their bad experiences. And but this one woman had a whole book, and I said, okay, I'm buying that book, $20, yeah. And had pictures in it and things like that. So, everybody learns in a different way. Some people need to hear people talk. Some people need to see videos. Some people need to read books. Yeah.
What can you tell us about permaculture?
Permaculture, I started studying that probably in 2007, 6, 7. There's some great teachers out there. Some I think are charging too much for courses, personally. But there's a lot of videos, and you can pick up a lot of the beginning stuff on videos. Permaculture is basically permanent agriculture, but it's not just agriculture. It's also using what you have in your own local environment. If you have a dump nearby, go talk to the people there and see if you could pull out used lumber and stuff like that, and you can grow your beds that way without spending a ton of money. So it's all about reusing existing resources, and then there's other ways of capturing rain, like by creating swales, what they call swales, especially if you're on a hilly area. So there's all these different aspects of permaculture that, once again, it's going to be a never-ending learning curve. But you're looking to start from where you are, wherever that is. If you got a balcony in an apartment, put some potted plants out. Start there. And then, if you like what you're doing and you're really serious about it, you'll find groups out there, local groups. There's something called master gardeners that have a lot of knowledge, and there are courses people take. Or you could find somebody who is a permaculturist who's been certified and really knows his stuff or her stuff.